district, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice, from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man, y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be trading. And I always be trading. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.
What is up, Fantasyland? Weekend Tailgate, Dan. Usually we're on a Thursday evening. Unfortunately, I got a little sick yesterday. We wanted to make sure we drop something for you guys, especially the GOAT District faithful. So we're gonna do this right now. We're recording Friday afternoon. You guys are gonna be getting this on around 7:30 p.m. Eastern. Just to let you know where we're at with these updates. This is where Dan and I talk about waiver wire results, especially FFPC high stakes, dynasty leagues, the fantasy pros, the main event. Then we get into last night's game, Dan, which was kind of a snoozer. We've got a couple questions from the audience. We'll answer at the end. Audience meaning Twitter, Dan, or X? What do they call it? What are people calling it? I don't even know anymore.
I don't know. Some people are calling it X. I still call it Twitter. I'm old. I don't give up my... I don't give up the way I do things very easily. So, it's just going to be Twitter to me until everybody everywhere starts calling it X, and then I'm just forced to go along.
Yeah, I feel like I see the X and it doesn't click right away. I need to
all I think of is ZZ Top. Heard it on the X. So
nice.
Yeah.
The bearded twins. So let's start with waiver wire review, Dan. Just again, I mean, we've had some pretty exciting waiver wires, just as we see every year. Injuries creates opportunities. I had a pretty good get in one of my leagues. Dan, I know you and I share a bunch of leagues at all levels, redraft, dynasty. What was some of your favorite pickups, or maybe any close misses?
Yeah, so Marvin Mims came available in 2 of my leagues, and as you know, I am one of the preeminent Marvin Mims truthers in fantasy football today. So I put on a bid of, I believe it was $357 in one league and a bid of $403 in the other. The $357 bid I won by like $300, and the $403 bid I lost by $250. So that tells me out there somewhere there was a Marvin Mims truther, maybe even bigger than me. But other than that, I got him. So
nice.
Happy about that.
Nice. Yes. Still think long term, I think our trade might still work out for both of us, but we'll see. Mm-hmm. I do like what I see from him so far. My biggest get was one of my favorite rookies coming into the season, and one of my most owned players. I got me another one, Dan. I couldn't believe he was on the waiver wire. I share a fantasy pros with Harry Snowman, and when I saw this, I didn't really have to sell him on it. He knows how much I like the running back, but told him we got to put around 200 if we're gonna get him. Initially, my gut, Dan, said 228, and I think Snowman said let's do like 215 or 218. I said no, we got to go with my gut. And Dan, thank God we went with the gut, because the next I put in 228, the next bid was at 220, so we would have lost it with that initial bid. So go with your gut. That's the lesson of the day, especially with those bids. But I've learned from the best, and I've learned from you. So I feel like I'm getting better at this waiver wire game.
Yeah, that's one of the things too. I mean, if you really want a player, don't try to chisel it down by $10 or $15 or whatever, because about all that's going to happen is regret. I mean, if your initial, thought is 228, and then you go back and you say, you know what, I think 218 might do it. What's the difference really? $10 is not that much difference. I would rather just, go with my original thought, because you know what, if I lose, like I did with that Mims bid of 403, I just kind of had a feeling I was going to have to go higher in that league. I didn't go high enough, but I felt really good about my 403 bid, because I was like, yeah, I felt I took a solid swing at it. And just the same, I felt totally good about that $357 bid, even though I won it by $300. Clearly there are people out there who are spending much, much more than that. So, I got my player. I still got 2/3 of my fab left to go after that Mims bid. So who cares? I'm happy.
Yeah, I mean, that's why you have the blind bid money, is to go get your guys and go get these guys on waivers. So if you're always trying to get a guy on a discount and hope that you have the one league where, either people forget to bid or they're betting too low, you're better off, like you said, even add 5% to what you're thinking you're going to put if you really want the guy. So last night's game was interesting, Dan. San Fran at home against the Giants. The Giants were coming off of this huge comeback against Arizona, which for some reason I think people were putting more weight on than it deserved. I mean, San Fran's put up 30 now in every game so far this season. What are your thoughts on the game? Was it what you thought? I know I had I think I told you I teased the spread to minus 13.5. Just thinking it's probably going to be another blowout. I know at first it was actually looking tight for the first half.
Yeah, so I also put in a little parlay on underdogs pick'em, and the game really went kind of as I expected. I figured that the New York's offensive line was going to get overwhelmed by the superior pass rush of San Francisco. I mean, it's just tough to stand up against that kind of a rush when you're missing linemen, and so I figured probably there were going to be a couple more checkdowns to running backs by the Giants. And then on the 49ers side, we had Brandon Ayuk, who was, completely out. So I took the over on receptions by Kittle and by Deebo Samuel. And I also had underdog kind of gave me one of those special bonus things that Daniel Jones only had to get a half a yard. So I was able to pull off the four-way parlay and 10x my money on that one. So
nice.
Happy about that. But
there you go.
Yeah. Unfortunately, they'll only let you bet $10 when you're using their little teaser.
Oh, really? That's hilarious.
Yeah. But hey,
felt pretty good.
Yeah, still felt good. Got it right. Start a winning streak. So that was good. But yeah, I was talking to some people on Twitter this morning who were like, man, I can't believe that, they didn't throw to Jalen Hyatt, as far as the Giants go. I'm like, man, I don't know how they were supposed to. I mean, he has trouble releasing off the line anyway. And, the pass rush it was on Daniel Jones so fast, he never had time to let routes develop. So he had to take short underneath stuff all the time, pretty much all night.
Yeah, and he was if he even got out of the pocket, he's kind of running away from the Giants that are trying to take him down. So it was a tough game for him, but kind of expected just with what we've seen from both these teams so far. I would think. Do you think Waller could be a value right now? I know coming in, this is some info that actually Harry Snowman was sharing with me that they were third against the tight ends coming into I know it was like 2-game sample, but still relevant. And they pretty much shut down Waller last night. So could you see, after a bit of a shaky start to the season and a tough defense, maybe Waller being a value, or do you think he's a falling knife right now?
No, I think Waller is definitely a value right now. I mean, let's look at the 3 games he was in. The first one was a game in the rain against Dallas, where the Giants got down big early, and by halftime they were just absolutely buried, and they'd pretty much given up. They'd pulled Waller because he already had some hamstring problems that he'd been working through. Why risk him? Then he has a decent game against Arizona. And then he plays San Francisco, who, not only this year, but 4 years has been great against the tight end. They're one of my least favorite teams to put a tight end against. So I think Waller is probably going at a real value right now. If you can trade for him, definitely throw the offers out now. Because I feel like he's still going to be a big part of this offense, and there are going to be better days ahead. The Giants aren't going to be playing Dallas and San Francisco every week.
Agreed. And we talked about that on the Player Profiler show this week. Just people needing to pay attention to who these guys, what kind of defense. Dan, one of these flies is like attacking my mouse finger here, and it's super annoying because they're like half dead by the time they get to my desk area for some reason. Might not say anything good about the air in this office, but yeah. So if you guys see me swishing away, it's being attacked by some house flies here. So, all right. I'm glad you agree with that with Waller. I was thinking the same thing. Hopefully we can get some offers out before we drop this tonight. Daniel Jones, does he also become a value? He showed us what he's able to do in that one half against Arizona, or do you just think like he's looked bad? Again, is it just a matter of the defense they played? Just a quick answer here. Or do you think that he could also be a value similar to Waller?
I think that it's largely a matter of the defenses that they played, but I think Daniel Jones probably isn't quite as good as what people were hoping off of last year. So it's a little bit of both.
All right. Actually, you know what? Let's talk about Barkley right away, because initially I think we weren't sure. Now it's confirmed high ankle sprain. He was saying he's going to be back Monday against Seattle. Doesn't look like he will be. Breda did get a touchdown last night against his old team, the revenge Breda game. So good for him. But I mean, do you have confidence in Breda next week if Barkley isn't starting? And as a Barkley owner, like, how are you concerned about this injury?
Honestly, as a Barkley owner, I hope that he sits out next Monday night's game as well.
Yeah.
I would rather him get right than try to get out there too fast and have this be a problem that's slowing him down for half the season or more. So let's. Hopefully the Giants are going to play it conservatively as well, but they're also kind of digging themselves a little bit of a hole. They're 1-2, which is not terrible, but it's certainly not where you want to be. And so we might see a little desperation trying to get Barkley in there, get that offense going a little bit. But if Barkley doesn't play, I mean, Breda is you're never going to feel great about having him in your lineup, but he was able to get the cheap score. He got a couple receptions. He'll find a way to probably cobble together about 10 points one way or another.
Stay tuned, guys. We're going to have those couple questions from the Twitter machine at the back end of the show. Right now, we're going to look at kind of combination of NFL news, injury updates, as well as practice updates. Dan, we've got a nice list this week. Some good news in some places, some not so good news in others. And we even have a trade in your neck of the woods. And you know what? Why don't we start with the trade? Cam Akers going to the Vikings. I don't remember what it was for. What is it, 7th or something like that?
It was for a swap of 2026 6th-round picks.
Okay.
Which I don't even know how you do that, because how do you even know that the Vikings pick isn't going to be worse than the Rams pick? I mean, it's possible the Vikings could end up getting the better pick out of this, and they got Cam Akers. This is just basically, to me, the Rams saying, hey, we want to be able to say we traded him and we got something for him. But it's the 2026 is as far out as you can trade picks in the NFL. So basically, and of course, 6th round is almost as bad of a pick as you can trade. So basically, this was a trade for the minimum draft capital possible. And if Akers doesn't get 500 yards from scrimmage this year, the Vikings owe nothing for him.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that tells you about how much the Rams valued Akers. I think they just decided he was better off the team than on the team, no matter what. As far as, what he's going to be like on the Vikings, I think, Cam Akers and Alexander Madison, if they switched uniforms at halftime, you would probably never know because they're both the same kind of person, especially Akers after he's had his Achilles, repaired. He just hasn't been the same runner since, really. And so he's just got no juice. Madison has no juice. I don't really know that the Vikings have really done that much good by adding him in. I guess he might be better than Ty Chandler, but to me, this is your chance right now in Dynasty, or if you're in redraft and you've got Cam Akers on your team, get him off your team right now.
Yeah, 2 running backs I wasn't very high on this offseason, Dan, kind of end up in an offense that I was high on going into the season, just them being in their second year in that offense. But Akers and Madison, I think like towards the back end of draft season, I said even on a show, like I kind of feel like I need to grab a couple shares just because I literally had none from the offseason. But I mean, Akers ends up kind of in a familiar place with the offense, so that's good for him. Maybe he is able to have like a last hurrah. I don't have really high expectations for either. This is really, for me, I'm looking at the aerial game when I'm looking at the Vikings fantasy wise. Anyways, that's kind of where I like the Cousins, I like the JJs, I love the Addisons. Give me some TJ Hawk, but not really on this running game right now, especially now if 2 guys similar are sharing. That really limits the ceiling on either guy unless we have an injury.
Yeah, and kind of a hidden little thing is the Vikings have been missing their starting center for almost the entire season. He did play a little bit in the first week, but he got injured and hasn't been able to be back since. That's definitely hurting him as far as like their run blocking. So he's a guy who sets up protections as well. So that's a little bit of a hit to the entire Vikings offense. So Garrett Bradbury is the guy's name. So love to see Bradbury get back in there, and I think it'll help the whole Vikings offense and hopefully the running game as well.
Nice. I figured you being in Minnesota would have some inside scoop there, and there it is, Dan. I love it. So I had no idea about the center. That's why I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh, and by the way, wheels up on Kyren Williams too. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, Dan. Oh yeah.
Yes. I have bags and bags full of them, and if you're looking for the backup to Kyren Williams, I don't know how to tell you this, but Ronnie Rivers ain't it. You probably want Zach Evans. So that
whenever there's like the first or second year guy, and then there's like the traveled journeyman, you're usually better off with going the upside because I don't know.
Yeah, I think if it comes down to Rivers or Evans, Evans is going to get a real shot, and if he can't do it, they're going to bring somebody in from the outside. I just don't see Rivers as ever being more than a change of pace guy.
Yeah, agreed. And last year he had opportunities, and to me that's with running backs. If you don't capitalize on opportunities, I'm not interested in you in the future. That's just kind of why I didn't like what's buddy that came out of Buffalo. Oh, Moss, who might have a role right now in this offense, which he's definitely taking advantage of. So good for him. Let's go to a surprise from week 1, I believe, was Jacoby Myers. Went off, had a pretty nice stat line in Vegas, getting a nice amount of targets, but then dealt with a concussion. So he's been upgraded, Dan. He's back. Where did I see this? It was reported by Field Yates, Raiders. Jacoby Myers' concussion was a full participant in practice today. So good sign that he'll be available for Sunday night against the Steelers. Any thoughts there, Dan?
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see how he does. 1 week is just 1 week. So, it was nice what we saw the first week. We're hoping for more like that. But, we know that Devontae Adams is the alpha in this passing game. And I think most things are going to flow through him. But still, Myers is a guy that we had kind of hoped, as we were through draft season, would be a relatively low-cost player that could, toss in some good weeks. He's already tossed in 1 good week, so hopefully he'll get to toss in some more as we go down the stretch here.
Jeremy at Popes FFH points out leaders in yard per route run, Dan. Who do you think's ahead of who? Jacoby Myers with 3.68 in the 3 spot behind Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans, ahead of Devontae Adams at 2.88. Again, small sample size. Just saying.
Right. Yeah. It's very, very small sample size. And, basically teams were, Devontae Adams is going to get the better coverage anyway. So, we may see some more of that coming up. Who knows? But I think teams will adjust if Myers continues to make them bleed underneath or over the top.
Dan, fun fact about our New York Jets. Again, small sample size. But when Garrett Wilson and or Breece Hall score a touchdown, the Jets are 7-1, according to Zach Rosenblatt at Zach Blatt. Breece Hall, Dan, limited in Thursday's practice with the knee. I feel like that's just the way it's going to be, and you got to just assume he's going to play and be maybe on a limited count. Is that?
Yeah, I expect he's going to be limited in practice most, if not all, of the year. There's just no sense in putting him through any extra anything that could potentially bring up a problem. You want to save him for game days. As long as he's getting some of the mental reps in practice and everything else, that's the main thing that you want. And Hall is a guy who's, I'm afraid, going to be feast or famine for at least the first half of the season here. It got worse when Zach Wilson became quarterback because it makes the offense a lot more one-dimensional. But basically it's going to come down to, does Breece break a couple big runs or not? And that's pretty much what it's going to be every week, I feel like.
Could we see a squeaky wheel, Dan? Him after last game saying that, I only got 4 touches. Of course we struggled.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit, and I think he's a little bit right too. You don't want to see him just limited to 4 touches like that. But again, it was it was a pretty awful game script for the Jets, and it was just tough for them to really put a lot of effort into running the ball because they got down early, and they had to try to kind of get back into the game any way that they could. So, just not a great script, and hopefully it'll be better this week against New England.
My buddy Smoking Joe Burrow, Dan, did not practice on Thursday. They play Monday, I believe, so he does have an extra day. Adam Schefter reporting Will Greer going to New England. The Bengals now don't have a QB2 on their roster if Joe can't play Monday night. Is that a fact?
I believe that is a fact. They just have Browning on their roster, Jake Browning. And so he would be the quarterback if Burrow can't go. My guess is they probably have somebody that was on the team over the summer that they can bring in and just sign for the game if they need to have that extra body. But if you've got Joe Burrow, since he does play on Monday night, this is a problem for your team if you were planning on starting Burrow. So you need to make sure that either you just pivot off him proactively on Sunday if you've got a good option, or if you don't have a good option, I think there's a decent option available on, maybe a couple decent options available that are playing on Monday night. You could play his opposing quarterback, which would be Matt Stafford, and I think Stafford's got a good chance to do about as well as a gimpy Burrow, or you could pivot all the way over to Bucs quarterback, Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
And he's going up against an Eagles defense that is really struggling against the pass right now. They lost some key pieces out of their secondary over the first couple weeks, and Baker Mayfield has been really on fire. So I think that's an interesting pivot off of Joe Burrow, and one you might even think of making if Burrow is playing and just kind of give Burrow another week to show what he can do. And if you're one of those who stacked Burrow and T. Higgins and Jamar Chase together, yikes, this is not looking like a good season. So hopefully Burrow gets better fast.
Why are you calling out my UPL Goat League team, Dan?
I've got a main event with BIP that's the same way. So
it's all right. We'll have our weeks.
Excuse me.
We will have our weeks.
Yes.
Dan, most targets without a TD receivers. Who do you think it is right now?
Most targets without a TD. I don't know. Has Puka scored one?
Puka Nakua, 34 targets. Good call. The next man behind him, 25, with Justin Jefferson, 21, Chris Olave, 18, Mike Williams, from our friend Alex Caruso, at Alex Caruso. Make sure you guys follow him, friend of the show. Any thoughts? He did not practice Thursday, oblique. I don't really know the status. I know I have some Tutu Atwell that I would throw in, I guess, if Puka is not playing, but what do you think? Does the LA Ram play or no?
Yeah. Sean McVay has been pretty confident that Puka is going to play this week. So
okay. Nice.
I think he can feel good about throwing him in. And really, there's no reason not to throw Tutu in there as well, because the offense has basically been flowing through three players, Puka, Tutu, and Kyron Williams. So those are the players you want off of Rams skill players. Anybody else, you probably either want to bench them or drop them.
Yeah, Stafford was nice value this offseason.
Oh, yeah. I was not including quarterback in there. Sorry.
Speaking of quarterback, Dan, a rookie who's been looking pretty good and probably making Carolina have regrets, CJ Stroud, full practice, upgraded on Thursday with the shoulder. He seems to have some nice rapport chemistry with two receivers there, Nico Collins and the rookie Tank.
Yeah, without a doubt. And Robert Woods also has looked reinvigorated since he landed in Houston. So
Bobby Woods.
Yeah, I like what I'm seeing out of CJ Stroud. Honestly, he was a guy that I was drafting a good bit of as a second or third quarterback in those super flex tourneys. I felt real good about him because he was cheap. He was very cheap coming late in the drafts, and I felt like he was probably the best of the rookie quarterbacks and was likely to, be able to succeed pretty immediately. He's done even better than I expected, though, so this is great to see.
Yeah, CJ Stroud, definitely Carolina fans, I'm sure, are hoping things even out a bit more, but right now, Houston getting the better end of those draft picks. Dan, two of your favorite guys, Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. So Boston Scott is in concussion protocol. He's not practicing.
And he's not playing the Giants, so you can keep him on your bench.
True. And then Kenny Gainwell, your boy, is back, returning to full practice on Thursday from rib injury.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Philly does on the ground here. They're playing against a tough Tampa Bay run defense, so who knows how it's going to go. But also we had Swift had a big blow up game in week 2. I don't think that they're going to make it the complete DeAndre Swift show. I think Gainwell's going to have a role in there, but whether it's a 70-30 split or a 60-40 or 55-45 split, I don't know what it's going to be. So it'll be kind of fun to see. Certainly I'm not abandoning my Gainwell shares or my stance. I think he's a great player. I think DeAndre Swift is still a player that I do not trust for a season. Any game that he's healthy and starting, I like Swift, but I just cannot trust him all season, so I think holding on tight to Gainwell is definitely the strategy you want to pursue here.
Is Tyreek Hill the first receiver off the board, Dan, right now? Or is he in the conversation to be in with JJ and Chase in these drafts, or do you think he even goes ahead in a lot of drafts right now?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Underdog gets their resurrection contest or whatever they call it when they do after week 4 or 5. They kind of do another BBM style contest, because I think if things continue as they are, Tyreek Hill might be the first player off the board. Him or Christian McCaffrey. But with you had just mentioned that Justin Jefferson, 25 targets, no touchdowns. I don't expect that streak to continue. Jefferson is going to catch some touchdowns. So, Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, you can mix them up in a hat. I'll be happy picking either one of them out of that hat. The one I'm just not too wild about right now is Jamar Chase.
Yeah, Vikings and Chargers this weekend would probably be a good weekend for JJ to have a big game, I would imagine.
Yeah, so let's hope for a big points orgy for fantasy football.
There you go, Dan, getting frisky on a Friday afternoon. John Heimkamp saying, I'd still rather have Devontae Smith than Jamar Chase. Hi, guys, I'm back. Do you agree with that, Dan?
Devonta Smith over Jamar Chase. That is an interesting take. That's a little spicy. I love Devonta Smith. I don't know that I would take him over Jamar Chase, though, until Burrow is healthy. I probably would. So for the short term, yes. For the long term, I think Chase is still the better player. But Devonta Smith might be, and you know how much I love A.J. Brown, but he might be equal to or better than A.J. Brown as a receiver. Because he's just, he's a couple of years behind A.J. Brown in his NFL career. And we're seeing great things out of Devonta Smith already. So love it. If you got any of those players, you should be very happy.
Kyle Lindman at Luck is Made FF tweets out, Tank Dell and Tutu Atwell are both under 5'10 and 170 pounds, yet playing primary as outside receivers on their teams. Devontae Smith broke the mold in 2021, proving you don't need to be 6'2 and 250 pounds to make it anymore. The game is evolving. That's a pretty valid point.
Yeah, the game is evolving, but it's also coming full circle. If you've been around the game as long as I have, you might remember back to the 80s when there were a whole lot of receivers around known as Smurfs, which, for those who don't know what Smurfs are, those are little blue guys that were on Saturday morning TV in the 80s. So anyway, now that I've thoroughly dated myself, yeah, I mean, it used to be that small receivers were absolutely the rage in the NFL. It was little guys who could make lightning fast moves, turn on a dime, all that kind of stuff. And then as cornerbacks got smaller and smaller, receivers started getting bigger and bigger to compensate, because then all of a sudden they could just overmatch them size-wise. Now we're kind of seeing it go back to those smaller receivers again, who are much more maneuverable. There's a whole lot of big cornerbacks in the NFL, and they're having trouble keeping up with those small receivers agility-wise. So the whole thing just goes in cycles, and in this case, it's like a 30-year cycle or so that is what we're seeing here.
At Sports Talk 0, Philadelphia Eagle targets share right now. A.J. Brown with 16, Devontae Smith with 15, and then Dallas Goedert 8, DeAndre Swift with 5, Gainwell with 4, and then it's like 2 and then 1s. So kind of a narrow route target tree, Dan, in Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's exactly, in a lot of ways, it's exactly what we expected. I figured that it was going to be heavy on the wide receivers, and Mark Garcia, high-low on the It's a Trap show, told everybody, do not be drafting Dallas Goedert. He's going to disappoint. So far, that's been what he's done, is kind of disappointed. And Phillies, with Hurts, has never been big at throwing to the running backs. So, we're just seeing a continuation of that trend. So, yeah, if you've got the wide receivers wheels up there, if you've got, Dallas Goedert, honestly, I think he's the kind of guy I would trade away if you have the opportunity, if he has a good game. See if you can flip him for something else, and hopefully get like a Hunter Henry or somebody like that who's actually performing at tight end.
Guys, smash the like button. We're here for you guys on a weekly basis to help you out, and make sure you check out actually myffpc.com. They still have the weekly games going right now. $35 buy-in, $200 buy-in. To win yourself some cash. You can play the weekly game there. Use the code GOAT to get a sign-up bonus. And then, Dan, you talked about Underdog. I'm not allowed on there, but you play prop games on there. Is that what it is?
Yeah, and they've got kind of a new version of a prop game on there now too. It's called Rivals, and you can pick things like James Conner versus Tony Pollard, because they're playing in the same game. Rushing yards, Connor plus 14.5 versus Pollard. So you can make bets like that. I did a couple of those, and I think they're a lot of fun. Let me pull them up here.
Guys, use the code DISTRICT on Underdog to get it up to $100 matched on your first deposit. Use the code DISTRICT.
Yep, definitely. So I did three picks. I have Russell Wilson minus 11.5 rushing yards over Tua Tagovailoa. I have Hunter Henry plus 1 receiving yard over Alan Lazard, and I have Puka Nacua plus 30.5, or excuse me, minus 30.5 receiving yards over Tyler Higbee. So those are 3 bets. I thought each one of them was definitely a smash. Add them all together, and you can 6x your money if you're right.
I like it. There you go. So you want to get your fix for the weekend, you go to myffpc.com, use the code GOAT, then you go over to Underdog, use the code DISTRICT, and you got yourself some free money in your face. So Dan, I talked about my excitement for Kendre Miller. He's officially a full participant in practice. Derek Carr, also excited, says, I just want to see that violence that I know that he has, that he runs with. I mean, I'm pretty excited for this. I think there's an opportunity. I know Jones Jr. looked all right this weekend, or this past, was it Monday night, their game? Yeah, this past Monday with the 2 touchdowns. And they'll probably share at first. But I do feel like this is an opportunity right now for Kendre to show what he can do and maybe even take over this backfield, at least till Kamara comes back.
Yeah, which is unfortunately for Kendre, it's next week that Kamara comes back. But, we also saw some signs with Kamara last year that his abilities might be diminishing a little bit, and it may have been just, sometimes it's 1-year variance like that. But if they are, and Kendre can put together a good game, we could see even more of Kendre moving forward. So I'm very hopeful that Kendre puts on a good show this week and, kind of forces his name into the conversation for next week.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is for me, Dan. Plus, you got to remember these running backs coming in late into the season. We've seen them get injured right off the bat often enough. So if he can just prove himself as the true number 2 in that offense with this opportunity, to me, that would be huge. But yeah, Kendre, happy to have him back in the field and getting his opportunity now with the Saints. Taysom Hill, another one who's upgraded for New Orleans to a full practice, whether he's your QB or your tight end, or I don't even know anymore what he's listed as.
if you can get him as a tight end, he's a great play. If you have to play him as a quarterback, not so great. But a tight end, running back, whatever, he's probably worth playing because I do think he is going to factor in this week. But again, hopefully we see the Kendre show. But it's gonna be fascinating to watch this one.
Dan, Amari Cooper limited again, groin and shoulder on Thursday. Do we care? Is he in or out? Do you know? And what do you expect from him this week?
Well, he wasn't supposed to play on Monday night, and he went out there and put up a pretty good game, especially considering how the quarterback play was. So I don't mind putting him in my lineup at all if he's going. It's very clear that Deshaun Watson likes to throw to him, trusts him. Hopefully Watson's mad enough at himself and improves his performance, and we see a good game out of both Deshaun Watson and Amari Cooper here.
Yeah, they're at home against Tennessee. Low over under 39.5, but you got to think Cleveland bounces back after what was for me kind of a shocker in Pittsburgh last weekend.
Yeah, it was just a very, very fluky game with Pittsburgh getting a couple of defensive scores, which Pittsburgh defense is good. We know that. So it's not a huge surprise, but, getting 2 defensive scores in one game that's tough. That does not happen often. So, and really the Pittsburgh offense has looked terrible. So we need to see that improving soon. I have a few too many Deontay Johnson, Pickens, Jalen Warren shares, things like that. So I'm hoping they can get their act together.
Speaking of Tennessee, Dan, Derrick Henry did not practice. Toe also rest. He's up there. He's a bigger dude. I'm sure they give him some rest. And then his buddy DeAndre Hopkins' ankle seems like he may be re-aggravated in practice and was limited on Thursday.
Yeah, Hopkins I think will probably go, and Derrick Henry I'm almost certain will go. I think that was more of a rest day than anything for Derrick Henry. He's another guy that just doesn't need to be out there in the practice field exposing himself to injury. And DeAndre Hopkins a little bit too. I mean, sometimes these teams use those injury designations and call it limited or whatever because they just don't want their star players to get exposed to too much out on the practice field. There's just kind of only bad things can happen there if they know the offense already.
Interesting, Dan. We were talking about Joe Burrow earlier, and I checked the line on the Bengals Rams game was -3 this morning, and now I just looked at it. It's back to -2.5. So there must be some news about Burrow. Maybe the chances of him started lessened a bit.
Could be. I mean, it might just be more bettors piling in on one side.
True.
But it's hard.
And Burrow's probably worth more than half a point, so you're probably right.
I would think so.
Yeah, definitely true. Austin Eckler did not practice Thursday. He's been dealing with the ankle. What are your thoughts on him? We talk about them playing Minnesota right now. Actually, very high score, over under at 54, and it's Vikings by 1 at home, which is not saying much.
Yeah, I think that's going to be quite the game. I do not expect to see Eckler this week. I think it's going to be more Josh Kelly and perhaps a little bit of Elijah Dotson as well. And I'll tell you what, after watching the Vikings run defense, and I use that term defense very loosely, against the Eagles, where the Eagles just had their way with them. This is a game that you don't want to look at Josh Kelly's last game and say, oh, I'm taking him out of my lineup. You want to look at DeAndre Swift's last game and say, oh, I want Josh Kelly in my lineup for this one. So if I've got Josh Kelly, I am starting him with confidence.
I like it. That's going to be a fun game. Because even though LA has not won games, they've been very good on offense. If you own them in fantasy.
Yep, definitely.
And I thought I had an actual some actual stats on that, but I apologize, but I lost it. Just one more thing I added here, Dan. Trevon Diggs suffered an ACL tear at practice, out for the season. Dallas losing a big piece on that defense. Does that change anything? I mean, obviously it changes something, but how much does it change this defense, you think?
It's going to hurt. But again, the Cowboys defense is really, it's elite up front, and the secondary is very solid.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of what's happening with the Dallas defense is generated by the pressure that they put on up front. So I would be much more worried if this had been Micah Parsons rather than Trevon Diggs.
Yes. Have you seen this, Dan? Aaron Rodgers, the treatment that he got, the surgery, Speed Bridge. Have you seen this video?
No, I haven't seen the video on that. I've been meaning to look that up.
Ian Rappaport, I just retweeted it. So if you go to @JDGoatDistrict, I just retweeted it. You see it's literally hit the clip of him showing what the treatment is. There's even like a 3D image thing. Which, if you get a little sensitive with stuff like that, maybe you don't want to actually see it, but it's pretty cool. And I don't know if that means he comes back quicker. Maybe that's why he had this confidence to him when he was on the McAfee show, but interesting. Today's technology when you're rich,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're doing more and more impressive things with, all the reconstructions and everything else. I mean, it used to be that, if you blew out your ACL, that was it. Your career was over. Used to be if you blew out your Achilles, that was it. Your career was over. So it's nice to be able to see these players being able to come back and resume, productive careers in a lot of cases. Though I will still point out that the Achilles is almost undefeated against running backs still. So, Cam Akers looked good for a while last year. Hopefully he can look good again this year. But it's a tough one to come back from.
This weekend, are you starting Addison or T. Higgins? Is a question from our buddy at DWZ_Dr. PT, Mr. Dr. Kyle Balzer.
I'm definitely starting Addison anywhere that I've got him. It would be, I don't know. I guess a lot of teams are probably going to have a hard time putting T. Higgins on the bench and putting in a player as good as Addison to replace him. There's going to be a lot of teams out there where the options just aren't that good. Addison over T. Higgins, probably so, but it's not by much. And that's only assuming that Joe Burrow doesn't play, which we're not going to necessarily know on Sunday. We might, but we might not either. So, it's not the end of the world if, Joe Burrow doesn't go. It's not like they're not going to be throwing the ball. It's not like they're not going to be throwing the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. They're still going to get targets. Not as good a quarterback, but I think Higgins might actually be in a better position to deal with that than Jamar Chase, just because he is a big tall dude, who's capable of just going up and getting those jump balls. So the quarterback just needs to throw it in the zip code, and he can probably go get it.
Yeah, it would be hard for me to start Higgins ahead of Addison, but like you said, if I have Addison, I'm happy to start him this week against the Chargers. I don't get too fancy with my start sits, especially with my top guys, especially with the firepower that, look, you saw him this weekend, 2 touchdowns, Higgins this past weekend, Dan?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. So, he's a player to be reckoned with.
Yeah,
even though I said fade him, and I still think that was probably going to be the right move, that's not to say he's not a good player. I just didn't like his ADP.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it, right? He's second, third round kind of draft capital there and coming into the season.
I would have rather seen him, more like into the 4th round. I felt like that was a more appropriate place for him to be priced, but he wasn't priced there. So, and I still got a couple T. Higgins shares anyway, just because I share teams with other people who really like T. Higgins, and that's the nice thing about sharing teams is you don't have to win every battle. You don't have to fight every battle, because you know what? They're just going to help you kind of get a little bit more exposure across the board in places where you wouldn't get it if you were just drafting your own teams. So I'm happy to say I've got a couple shares of T. Higgins, and they came in handy last week.
At TKUE88, should I start Zach Moss or Josh Kelly, PPR?
Gosh, I think I'd probably start Josh Kelly. The Vikings' run defense did not look good. That's probably going to be a shootout game. The Colts are playing who again? I'm blanking on this. Sorry.
Oh, man, now I'm blanking. Baltimore. That's right.
Okay, yeah, Baltimore. That's probably going to be a much lower scoring game. So I would go ahead and just start Josh Kelly there.
Yeah, that game's at 44 over under. And then where's
Vikings
the Rams
Chargers got to be over 50, right?
The Rams game. Why am I not finding it? Oh,
you don't want the Rams. You want the Chargers.
Or Chargers. Wow. I've been doing that, Dan, all year. I don't know why. Just maybe psychologically, the colors with the LA. I've been doing that in conversations. It's so weird. That one's a 54 over under, so it's definitely a higher scoring game. But yeah, interesting one. I mean, Baltimore hasn't been that great defensively. And if AR is not playing and it's a Minshew start, I think Moss could give you a nice production week. I don't know that it's I don't know that it's that far off between the two. It's kind of a coin flip for me. Probably a slight lean on the LA just because of the score of the game opportunities.
Yep.
All right. So shout out to you guys for the questions. If you're watching this because we didn't do a live show like we do every other week on the tailgate and answer your questions live, drop your questions in the comments and I'll pass them on to Dan and the Goat District crew, and we'll answer them for you. Try to keep an eye on that before the game Sunday. So drop your questions, whether they're start sits or trade questions, anything you have. Dan, anything we missed, or any players we didn't talk about, any games that you're extra excited about this weekend?
Yeah, I think I'm going to be interested to see whether Aaron Jones and Christian Watson can get back into the lineup this week.
Yes.
Aaron Jones getting back in would be huge for me. I've got him in quite a few places. The carnage at running back has been pretty unbelievable. So if we can get even one of those good running backs back into play, it's going to help a lot of fantasy teams out there. And Christian Watson, I think we're all excited to see what he can do. Jordan Love, some of his peripheral, metrics haven't been super great. He's just been, he's had great, more touchdowns than you would expect, which is nice deodorant. But again, on the other hand, he played one game without Aaron Jones and Christian Watson, and he played another game without Christian Watson. So it'll be interesting to see what Love looks like when he has all of his weapons at full power.
Yeah, I do have some Christian Watson sleeping shares, Dan, that have been on my bench, just dying, itching to get into the lineup. So I would love to see that, especially next week. They play on Thursday against Detroit, which is a nice divisional game. So you like to see both teams as healthy as possible for those rivalry matchups.
Yeah, which is why I'm not entirely sure that we're going to see either Watson or Jones this week. I think there's a decent chance they might hold them out because it is such a short turnaround next week. And they've got the Thursday night game, so I think they might be looking ahead to that. So unless everything is just all systems go, and the team doctors have no concerns whatsoever, I'm leaning more towards those players going to sit rather than they're going to start this week.
Yeah, they are at home, Dan. It is a close game. They're favored 1.5. So really the Saints kind of getting a bit of a 2-point lean there just because they're visiting. So usually it's a half, or it's 3 points for the home team. So actually a half, they're getting the Saints. So yeah, if they weren't at home in a close game, I would agree. But I feel like if they can play and get them in the lineup, they will. Either way, we'll be happy, Dan, to see both guys.
Yeah, the one thing that sways me a little bit more towards the negative is the way that the Packers medical staff has always been very, very conservative about return to play.
Okay.
So
that's your division, so I'm not going to argue.
Yeah, it's something I've watched over the years. So unless their medical staff, who knows who is actually on the medical staff from year to year, but that's been pretty consistent in the past. So unless something's changed on their staff, I think they'll probably be a little bit more on the conservative side, which doesn't mean that they're not going to play, but it just means if there's any hesitation on the part of the doctors, they would probably have them sit for another week.
Yeah, and if there's going to be a culture, with things like that, you would imagine Green Bay definitely one of the places. I'm going to do a little rant, Dan, before we close this out. I keep seeing these stupid videos on X, about fights, like people dying at football games, people getting severely injured at football games. Like, guys, what are you doing? You're going to imagine the kids that are at these games seeing this. Like, it's just wrong in so many ways. Look, I was a young punk and I was mouthy and all that kind of stuff. But you're going to a football game. It's supposed to be fun. You go to if you can't go to a stadium without having a beer and getting in a fight, then don't have a beer. Grab yourself a Coke, or before you walk in the stadium, pop a couple gummies or something, and then you're definitely not going to fight. You're going to sit there, you're going to enjoy the game with that stupid look on your face, and everybody will be happy. But guys, no fighting in the stadiums. I'm not a fan of that. I don't know, Dan, if that happens in Minnesota, but I've seen it in a few stadiums this week on the Twitter machine, the X machine.
Well, we do have the Minnesota Nice working in our favor, but there have been fights at Vikings games as well. They're just seems like it's a little bit less often than some of the other stadiums, but yeah, it's stupid. It's moronic.
Nothing good comes out of it. Right. Nothing good comes out of that, so it ruins your time, ruins people around you's time, and just leaves a bad taste for people going to live football games. And that's the last thing we want as football fans. So behave out there, fantasy land. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Hopefully we helped you out so you can go out and crush your week 3. Tune in every Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Player Profiler Network. You'll find the GOAT District, and usually Thursday night, 7 p.m. Eastern for the Thursday Tailgate. And if we don't worry. You'll see us either on Friday or Saturday for sure before the Sunday games to help you guys out. Guys, good luck this week. We'll check you all later.
GOAT District, you know the Pope listens. Dynasty, our religion, for the blokes missing. On all of these trades, on all of these plays, on all of these grades. By the end of the day, y'all getting played. So, what you gonna do next? Try to fill up that flex? Send the homie a text? That trash offer's the best? You try to make it complex, then they text you back. Now all of a sudden, they don't make any sense. Broaden your horizons, boy. Dynasty's not for the Simons, boy. These trades not for consignment, boy. Respect your opponent, y'all some piranhas, boy. This my advice from me to you. Open up your cute little podcast queue. Search up GOAT District, my dude. Pop it in your ear, man. Y'all know what to do. It's the... And I always be traded. And I always be traded. And I always be trading. Y'all try to betray them, but first you gotta bait them. Fish.